speak, even if your voice shakes, or in my case, cracks, and I have extreme pain because of an incident where I ended up hurting myself by accident, I managed to hurt myself. This has been a very bad month. We're going to be talking about conspiracy theories and their basis. And they're based on not looking up history, not reading books, and not acknowledging facts, because you're not preaching to the unconverted. You're screaming at your believers to not listen. Spot welded, deep stamped steel, sheet structure unibody cars. They're a conspiracy by the by the liberals, or whoever you hate, by the Nazis, whatever. These things can survive after being pushed off a cliff and keep you alive more often. There's an infamous video recording, I can't find it anymore, of someone suspending their car that they designed to be, quote, the beer can crushable type, dropping it from a cliff of like 50, 60 feet. I mean, it really hit hard. 30 feet or whatever it is the speed at which you're going to die. He had seat belts, and they were decelerator seat belts. And he had it made to where, on impact, it would pull as much of the front of the vehicle away from you, removing the steering wheel from being in front of you, and cause the dash to fold under. Hyper safe car, to where no matter how much you folded, you couldn't hurt. Having the belts established to the framework, which was stiff, and the rest of it being compressible material. It was a frame wrapped in a unibody. Not a scratch. And the G-force metering said that he was decelerated very safely. You'll never find the video. 1922, Lancia Lambda was the first company that was the first unibody car done by a company. Then by 1934, Citroën Traction Avant. And then into the USA, 1942, the Nash Ambassador 600. And then by 1959, most passenger car makers started installing seat belts. But that implies that it's unsafe. No, that was the marketing from the ones who didn't want to do it. By 1960, a year later, Detroit's Big Three used unibody designs for most cars. And eventually even trucks. It just made more sense. They could get away with making them cheaper. They didn't use as much metal. Shipping costs dropped. If you did it right, it was massive improvements. They started spot welding everything. And finding spot welds at different spacings with certain materials between the spaces between them could be done. 1961, the first state to require seat belts that they exist was Wisconsin. And people started screaming about it. Or were they astroturfers? It's your decision. I remember dealing with this in the 70s, but let's move forward. 1968, the year I was born. New passenger cars had front outboard seat shoulder belts as mandated, if a lap belt would still allow you to come in contact with a windshield, because that was the only thing that was important. Is, yeah, if you hit the windshield or the steering wheel, you die. This reduced the death rate massively, and it was mandated. And virtually every car had this problem. People would die wearing a seatbelt. That's where that myth comes from of they were trapped. No, they were dead on impact. People lied about this so fucking consistently that medical people were on the news explaining what they talked about, and people were misquoting the conclusion that they made during an autopsy. They were attacked by politicians that were screaming it because it was populism. Populism is another way of saying, find all the hicks in the area that believe something, echo what they say, and then ignore it after you get elected, and then start getting your hookers and blow. 1985, the first state to require the use of front seat belts was New York. 49 states required seatbelt use in the front seat occupants by law by 1996. 1997, Princess Diana, who had a driver that was drunk, crashed at 62 miles an hour, or double the speed limit, and caused her a broken arm, a fractured rib, and a minor lung vein tear from a fractured rib that would not have happened if she'd been wearing a seatbelt, which she had advocated for. She died by bleeding out. Now, all the conspiracy theories, again, someone running interference for this being a gigantic ad for mandating seatbelts, that scared people. So the people you see perpetuating the shit. The original origin story of coming up with the conspiracy theory was at least in part by people who wanted to make sure seatbelts weren't mandated because they're assholes about it. Just like people scream about gun control every time anything happens, and of course that causes people who are anti-gun control to assume that that incident must be fake. And no, I don't forgive or forget people who do this kind of memeing because it bothers me. Due to her loss of 80% of her survival odds by not wearing a seatbelt, she died. Period, full stop. It is not a debate. That's what killed her. And there was later on discovered damage to her seatbelt. This took place in testing a seatbelt in the vehicle to see when it would snap at by doing what they call a dead body test. They put in a sack of potatoes or whatever to emulate a human weight to see what it would break at, because they had to positively confirm it was at specification and would not have let her hit. But the damage afterwards, or you could say the damage was caused by the belt snapping from something else. Still today, I get claims that seat belts were caused by beer can quality cars built out of intrinsically unsafe alloys, which is bullshit. It was sheet metal. But if you claim to be hurt so badly wearing the seat belt, why would you assume that unbuckling it would make you more ambulatory? That doesn't make any sense, and it's never made any sense. The last time someone said this to me, I asked them to explain how they'd be better off not having the seatbelt on in exactly the same crash. Name a crash that you would be incapacitated in the seatbelt and not be worse without it. Name one. None can come up with one. Remember, I'm talking to a stock car driver who'd been in 2 rollovers. And I'd been in rollovers with him voluntarily, testing the shit out of our space frame we put inside of a car. I think he got the message after a rollover later on where he almost lost his life and his kids. He stopped bitching about the belts. A small but vocal minority has resentment about being told what to do by the authority, resisting every straightforward precaution that has proven public health benefits. Yes, I'm leading somewhere. Saying, I'm in charge, you don't tell me what to do. It's a dominance thing. Yeah, apparently it is. So much that others must die for it by you making sure that there aren't mandates for everybody, or even having the belts available for choice. Screw choice, I don't want it available because it's a slippery slope to mandate it. Yes, putting a safety on your firearm, that's a slippery slope to people taking your guns or something. Now I'm going to bring up what caused this. Somebody made a comment like this. There are 1776 by now, federal court judges in the United States, let's say. 30,000 state and county and municipal court judges exist. 0.32% or 100 of them a year are sanctioned at a judicial level and discipline procedures. They're not disbarred. They're punished and then disbarred. You have to do it the right order. There's 910 or 0.07% of the 1.3 million active lawyers disbarred each year, actual disbarment procedures. But that's 900, versus 100 per year. Okay. It is not a felony to lie on the internet about how you have somehow done more than that by getting 4,000 judges disbarred by lying about being a judge, by the way, and being the only one responsible for it. In a 40 years worth of work that you've accomplished, you never post any proof that you did this or the names of the judges you disbarred as your trophy room of stupidity. David Wynn Miller. Someone claimed that. I can't even find a proof that he even made that claim. In 2016, 4,000 members of the judiciary were removed from the job in the aftermath of a coup attempt in Turkey. That's the only occurrence I can find search engine optimized for it. So let me get this straight. Somebody claiming to be a judge in the United States went over to the country of Turkey and got 4,000 members of the judiciary removed in 2016. Let's talk about 2015. 4,000 motor vehicle ticket fines over 5 years were misdirected to municipalities that employed a now former judge who was disbarred. He was disbarred after the other procedures. And what brought this on? Someone made a claim on my channel that Wynn Miller punished a bunch of lawyers. And also another person, or maybe the same person, claimed that the reason unibodies exist is because, the reason seatbelts exist is they were caused by, sheet metal that was bad quality. The actual claim that you're misquoting, and has nothing to do with Detroit, is that foreign countries put these out first, and they were competing directly with American companies because they could save a little bit of money on the metal and make it massively safer for you. But that meant that if you got in a car wreck of any kind, the car was totaled more often. I've often thought about getting a car that has a crushy outer layer that I add on, but use a frame and body format that would be much stronger, because I don't want the thing to be completely incapacitated. I just want to make sure I'm not either. And I've come to the conclusion that can't happen. I want to buy a unibody car that will crumple to shit and get rid of it. That means I buy cheap and I buy safe. That means you buy an older Volvo body that's gone to shit and put other parts in it. And just own more than one car. If you're in a car wreck, it's totaled and you're in good condition. The worst you got is maybe some soreness for a few weeks, but you're not dead. How many American cars are like that? There's lots of cars made in America. They just have foreign names on them because one of the deals that we made with all these companies is they had to be American made if we sold them here because of the same sort of backlash. So what you're doing is shitting on foreign cars and then finding out they're actually American cars and shitting on them anyway. They didn't cause the seatbelts to happen because that's back in, a long time ago. Seatbelts have been around long before the 1900s in various pieces of equipment. But they were only mandated or started being used 1950s, 1960s. Most of the car makers put them in simply because it wasn't something to charge extra for. They could charge extra for it, but a lot of them put them in anyway because their lawyers said if you put the seatbelts in, there is no liability problem, and there is one if you don't. They could see the writing on the wall. The future is not now, but it's coming. But again, no matter how beneficial something is, there's always going to be some asshole complaining that we shouldn't do it. Clean water, antibiotics, washing your hands. Doctors used to complain about being told to wash their hands. A gentleman's hands are always clean. Yeah, unless it's covered with pus and fecal material. You're washing your hands or you're not a doctor here. You can't do that. You're not permitted in any hospital in North America for the rest of your life until you admit you are wrong. Basically, they'll never come back if they're that arrogant. And if they do come back, they will follow the rules. And you and I are better off for it. But some of you out there believe germ theory is bullshit and decided masks cause viruses. We're not the same people. And I'm happy to say, yes, I am better than that. And all of us are better off for this sort of thing. And no, it's not a conspiracy. And no, Wynn Miller did not cause 4,000 judges to be removed if he doesn't have a trophy wall explaining which ones they are. That's a claim made without any citation and should be treated as such. It should be flushed down the toilet. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. See you tomorrow.